This episode of Recording Studio Rockstars is brought to you by OWC, Spectra 1964, Atom Audio, iZotope, JZ Microphones, and Solid State Logic. You're hearing my voice right now on the JZ V12 microphone through the Spectra 1964 STX100D mic pre and C610 complementer with iZotope, RX, Ozone, and Neutron, all recorded safely onto an OWC SSD and mixed on Atom Audio monitors. So please remember to check out our awesome sponsors using the link in the show notes below. It's a great way to help support this show. And now, get ready to rock.
When I'm trying to teach people about recording, I'm like, there's a bit of set and forget with mixing a song, but there's a lot of stuff where you should be chopping the vocal track up into 3 or 4 different paths that have different things happen at different times and are compressed differently and affected differently and EQ'd differently for different parts of a song. And if you do it and you have a system and you do it quick, it doesn't take much time.
Welcome to Recording Studio Rockstars. I'm Lid Shaw, and this is the podcast created to help you become a rock star of the recording studio. The JZ Microphone Vintage series are built by hand in Latvia, featuring the patented golden drop capsule design for enhanced clarity that will give your recordings that classic vintage tone. You're hearing my voice right now on the JZ V12 mic. Our friends at JZ Microphones have come up with a special offer only available to Recording Studio Rockstars listeners, so use the limited time coupon ROCKSTAR to get 40% off the V67, V47, and V12 microphones. Go to jzmic.com and get your vintage mic now. Are you recording your own music or other people's music in your studio, but you're having trouble figuring out how to get your mixes to sound great? Do they sound weak and distant or lack punch and clarity? Well, I've got a gift to help you take your mixes from sounding like basement demos to sounding like professional mixes. And it's my free course called Mix Master Bundle. This course will show you how to get pro-sounding mixes from your home studio with free and stock plugins in Pro Tools. And the best part is that these mixing techniques will work for you in any DAW, whether you're in Logic, Cubase, PreSonus Studio One Reaper, or whatever you're using. Are you ready to make your best record ever? Then go to mixmasterbundle.com to get started for free now, and you can find the clickable link in the show notes of this episode. Hey Rockstars, it's your host, Lid Shaw, and welcome back to Recording Studio Rockstars, bringing you into the studio to learn from recording professionals so that you can make your best record ever and be a rock star of the studio yourself. My guest today is Larry Crane, the editor and founder of TapeOp magazine, started in 1996, owner of Portland's Jackpot recording studio, started in 1997, a freelance producer, engineer, mixer who's worked internationally, and archivist for the estate of Elliott Smith. Larry's record-making credits include Sleater Kinney, The Decemberists, Jenny Lewis, M. Ward, The Go-Betweens, Elliott Smith, Stephen Malkmus, She and Him, and many, many more. Larry is also a great teacher online, teaching or in person, teaching you how to record and mix great records with courses at LinkedIn Learning, featuring over 12 hours of real recording tips and tricks. He's spoken on and moderated panels at live events about recording for TapeOp Con, South by Southwest, North by Northwest, NARIS, AES, and CMJ. And of course, Larry has been an awesome guest on the podcast right here at Recording Studio Rockstars, back on episode 51 and 247, talking about his backstory and sharing some great recording and mixing tips. So today we're just going to catch up with Larry, see what's new up at Jackpot Studio, and keep on learning cool recording and mixing tips for your studio. I also want to dedicate this episode actually to a mutual friend and a great supporter of the music scene and of TapeOp, and a close friend of Larry's, Rob Christensen, who passed away in 2022. This episode, of course, will come out later, but Rob, you're an awesome dude. I'm glad to have met you, and we will all miss you. So please welcome back Larry Crane to Recording Studio Rockstars. Larry, are you ready to rock, my man?
Let's do it. Let's rock.
Yeah. Boy, let's see. Where am I going to begin? We've talked about so much stuff. As I was thinking about questions, I was like, I don't want to ask the same ones. Although, the funny thing about what we do is we probably could ask the exact same questions over and over again.
And get different answers.
And get different answers.
Because honestly, I was thinking about it too. If you had asked me in the previous podcast about remote mixing, the way I work and how I handle it is probably completely different right now.
I know. Plus me doing episodes in advance, by the time it comes out, it'll be a new thing. So it's all right. Recording is a journey.
Well, I'll hire a robot and I'm going to be in my spaceship by the time this comes out. So
I know. I'm looking forward to that.
Yeah, the future's good.
Yeah. Where will you park your spaceship? You think you'll...
Well, I was going to go to Antares because they have auto-tune. So that's good.
All right. There's the intro for the podcast, Rockstars. So tell us what's new. You're now joining us from Jackpot.
Yep. I'm in Jackpot Recording Studio in Portland, Oregon. 25 years old this year. So that feels pretty good.
A youngster.
No, the studio, not me.
Wow, man. So
yeah, 25 years. It's crazy.
And I think we probably talked about this some, but give us just share a little, or very shortly, share a couple of memories of starting the studio, and then where how that's different from what it is today.
I mean, the first thing that's obviously really different is 15 years ago we moved into this building. So the original studio was kind of this funky cinder block shack that we rented from a really great guy who's a local guy who's no longer with us here in Portland, but Wayne Lund is his name. And we rented this, Elliott Smith and I actually went and found this building and rented it and built a wall really fast. I think we opened the doors in 2 weeks back then in 97. And his album, Either Or, was just about to come out, which just also celebrated its 25th anniversary. And, the real thing, the thing that I always really try to tell people, especially when we're on a recording podcast or something like this, is that the fact that I even opened a commercial studio is absolutely due only to the fact that I was just maxing out my home studio. It was people coming over. I was so busy. When we opened the doors to Jackpot, we were booked out for months with people coming from California,
wow,
Seattle, Oregon to do records and stuff.
Why do you think that was? That's not, if we were going to give somebody advice for like, hey, open a studio, you probably wouldn't be inclined to say you'll be booked every single day of the week, right?
No, you would never expect that. In 1997, think about this, technology-wise, people were maybe using ADATs and some of those moving tape, digital formats. Most studios that were somewhat economical did not have a tape deck. That was just out of the price range.
Yeah.
And I think there just weren't very many places to record. Some of my friends here, like John Moen, who plays with the Decemberists now, I remember him saying, the bands in town, we need a place to record. We need someone who gets our music, can facilitate and help us make the records. And I think that's a rarity these days, that you would find that perfect little situation, because it's much easier now to have like a small Pro Tools based studio at a much lower investment than I even made back then for our 16 track, studio.
Yeah. But of course, if you're kind of opening and you're hanging with Elliott and Either Or is out at that point, then you've already achieved you've gotten the attention of some people at that point.
In my home studio, yeah, I'd been doing sessions with Cat Power, Stephen Malkmus, Elliott Smith, the Spinanes, like different people like that had already been in my home studio, Quasi, or not Quasi, but offshoots of Quasi, and I borrowed their equipment. When I moved to Portland, which had been about 4 years prior to opening Jackpot, I'd already been part of this scene up here. I'd been up here playing shows with a lot of the cool bands at Satyricon and various venues here. And so people knew, oh, that guy, his band has several albums, 4 albums out, and he's, toured the country, and Nirvana opened for them, and he's played CBGBs. It was like I wasn't coming in as just some rando dude that wanted to record people. I had a nice little resume built up.
Yeah. Well, so if you were giving advice to somebody now who's thinking about starting some sort of studio, I'm guessing this isn't the first time you've shared some advice. So what advice would you give?
Don't. No, I mean, the reality, no.
Don't forget to open that studio.
Don't forget to open that. I mean, honestly, I've thought about writing a book, and the title would be, "So, You Want to Open a Recording Studio?" And the first chapter would be trying to dissuade people. Now, when I say that, I don't mean that in a really negative way, and I don't have any regrets doing what I've done. But if you look at the idea of a studio, like a space that's dedicated to recording, they really need to define what it is you're going to use that for and why do you need it. And if it's just about wanting to have a lot of cool gear and get good sounds, that's great, but that's not a business plan.
Yeah, that's an expensive hobby.
That's an expensive hobby. And many people do that. That is fine. I don't care. But if you're going to open a studio and say, this is a commercial thing, you need to have a reason. You have to define what you want to do in that space. You know, it's not really a typical business plan because you cannot predict this at all. But you need to say what's going to go on in that space. How do you see it moving forward? What are people going to use it for? You know, and I was like, underground rock bands from Portland, Oregon,
right.
and
that have no money.
That have no money, and friends from up and down the coast and across the country.
And the end of that sentence is mom and dad.
Yeah, mom and dad. ...
Well, I'm going to do this, mom and dad.
You know, yeah, and I knew I was starting to feel comfortable that I could get half decent sounds, and I knew that if I had a better space and not doing it in my basement, you know, that I could help people out. And it was very inexpensive when we opened.
So I was checking out the website for your early band Vomit launch, one of the greatest names ever, to be repeated projectile. I can't think of the adjective for that. But was that stuff recorded in your basement studio?
Not at all. The craziest thing about my little path here is in recording is that besides home recording, which I'd been highly involved in, like cassette to cassette stuff. Actually, an album of that stuff just came out, like a collection
of the original, like cassette to cassette. Add the microphone as you pass from one to
83 to 84 or 5, I think it is.
Yeah. I just had one of my old bandmates, Joe Arman, on the show to talk about that very same thing.
Yeah. So these were cassette to cassette bounces where you do reduction mixes and add things, you know.
Actually, Joe's episode might come out later than yours.
That we can't see.
Not to confuse you, Joe.
Yeah. Where's Joe? Where the hell is Joe?
No, we were talking about the very same thing, like 2 cassette decks and the microphone input and all that.
Oh yeah, you just have a way to. I had a little mixer, and I built a mixer, and I got involved in that, and then and even like later with Vomit Launch, I got a 4-track cassette recorder a few years after those came out, and I was doing like demos and things, but I did not. There's actually one 7-inch that people helped me record the basics. I did some overdubs and someone else mixed. So there's one cassette 4-track, like Teen Beat release, a 7-inch called Relapsation. But you know, overall, no, I wasn't recording that. We went to work initially with Greg Freeman, who had been in the band Pell Mell and lived in the Bay Area, where we played and hung out all the time, San Francisco and that area. So Greg had a great studio called Lowdown, and it was an 8-track, and we would just go there, and he would get the sounds, and we'd just record. And then we did a few records with Greg, and then we ended up signing to a label called Mad Rover, which one of the principals in that is John Boccialupi, who is now my partner in TapeOp. And so he had a label, he had a studio. We worked at his studio, which was initially in his home. But it was like a Fostex 16-track 1/2-inch and an 8-track 1/4-inch that you could sync up. And sometimes we didn't do that too often. But we did records there. But I liked the creative part of making records and studios and stuff, but I wasn't like I didn't understand the, you know, mic pre, all these different things and how to set levels and some of that stuff. I didn't really quite have a grasp on that until I moved out to Portland after the band had broken up, 93, 4, and started learning more. And as I was learning, that's why I started a magazine about this because I wanted to learn more.
It's so cool. And we've talked about that on the podcast too, but
just leads right into that.
Just a reminder. I mean, it's like, I remember being at Alex the Great recording in Berry Hill right here in Nashville, and Brad Jones had just come back from the West Coast, and he was recording, I don't know, maybe he was in San Francisco, maybe he was in LA, and he was like, hey man, I thought you'd dig this. He's got this little folded zine stapled together, and you were doing, this magazine on how to record. And I can't remember if there were interviews in it then, or if you were just kind of sharing tips, but
there was always interviews. Yeah. Always interviews.
It was cool, man.
Yeah. I mean, that was just a labor of love, and I really, but I wanted to learn more. And so, I have a degree in communications. So it all kind of lines up a little bit, but
So if I fuck up on this interview, you're going to cover for me? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, that's it. I can take it.
All right.
I'll just take over. I'd written for zines and stuff, and I just saw that as sort of a continuation to be fun to write, about music recording. That was the era also of like the sort of self-published zine world being pretty huge. There were not huge in a big economical way, but there were just lots of them. And they were interesting.
In that way, that there were zines, the DIY ethos of zines, bands touring, and then also like cleverly figuring out how to record yourself with double cassettes or a 4-track. What are some things that you feel like you see happening now, if you're aware of them, in like next generations? Like in what ways is the next generation creating their own DIY stuff in that same way?
I mean, it's different, isn't it? I mean, I think you see a lot of cool stuff on Bandcamp, and I think people using that as sort of a way to distribute their music now, and in a slightly more equitable way than streaming and things that don't pay you. But I think a lot of what I see that's really cool is exactly the same as what we were doing back then, is like finding like-minded people to associate with. One of our contributors and someone I've interviewed is Sadie Dupuis from Speedy Ortiz and Sad 13. And she's just made it her mission to find out who all these amazing women that are doing audio recording are, and do her last Sad 13 record. She went all around and worked with different female engineers all over the country. And she's got stuff like that coming up now for some new records. And, and I think seeing that and working with people who do like-minded music, it's not just about being an engineer. And this is probably the big tipping point of this conversation right here. It's not just about being an engineer. It's about being an engineer that people trust and want to work with. And it doesn't have to be genre specific, but that in a way that doesn't hurt if there is something sort of tethering you as an engineer. And that can be a curse. I mean, I don't get to record reggae records, and I would love to record reggae records.
Let's do it, man. Let's do a reggae record.
Let's do one.
I'll write one.
Yeah, you write it, I'll record it. Well, and I'll dub it out.
That's awesome.
But I mean, that's fine. I don't mind like being pigeonholed in indie rock, say, or Portland music. But within that, I've found a lot of different things to do, and other random things come to me, like new classical and bluegrass and all kinds of different stuff that I do also super, super enjoy.
Yeah, well, all it really takes is for the cool indie rockers to discover reggae, and then when they're ready to make a reggae track, you're in.
It'll just sound like the Police. Don't worry about it.
Yeah, well, that's not a bad place to start. Right
exactly. But I think with the coolest thing I've seen with people that are younger is that they are finding other like-minded people to collaborate with, whether they're even in the same region.
Yeah.
I like your music, you like my music. Let's work together. Let's put some shows together. Let's do this cross-pollination. And I think we're still seeing that. And I think some ways it's easier because, it is easier to check out a new band now, to hear the music because of the internet. And it's easier to, keep in touch and do Zoom and Skype and emails and all these things. So I think the people that are determined to do stuff that they feel passionate about find the people around that are also in that zone. And I think that's the coolest thing. And I see that. I see it happening to people, 25 years younger than me easily.
Yeah, totally, man. So I was just thinking about that. you remember what it felt like to be the young kid making the music, and then you find these older cats who, like these older rockers or whatever, and you're the youngster. You're like, God, that guy's so cool. They're so hip. That's like, look at this backstory in the studio and the whatever. And now we're becoming that. It's like, I mean, I hope so. And I see, I see young people, interns, who they just are totally green. They're enthusiastic, but they haven't discovered this same music. They might even be doing a music that seems familiar and like it's been done before, but they're discovering it for the first time. And I love it, And I had coffee with a guy who was playing in an opening band for a band that I had produced, who was having their record release show. And I was like, hey, let's get together in the studio. And we're hanging out and just like totally clicking. And then he mentioned something about his band being compared sometimes to the Talking Heads. And I was like, oh, that's great. And we start talking, and I discover that he hasn't seen Stop Making Sense yet. So I get to introduce him to Stop Making Sense. I'm like, how cool is that?
Yeah, it's, what's interesting is, like, say, 1985, we started our band back then. And it was either, you mentioned like kind of mentors or people that are cool, that are a little older than you are. It was either people like that, a few of them, or mostly people that were like, your new music is garbage. You people, this punk rock you're playing. And we're like, this isn't
But we really like the name Vomit Lodge.
Yeah, we really like that name. Yeah. Please put more flyers up. But, there were people that were just so negative. They was just turned off to like any new music. And then there were people that were, 5-10 years older than us that were just like, this is great. Oh man, come play a show with us, So
well,
it really,
I think about that in the context of the bass music that comes out today. Like some iconic sounds that come out in new music would be big 808 kick drums, hot, machine gun hi-hats and auto-tune vocals. And that sort of permeates all sorts of new styles of music. And it's really easy for the old guard to sort of be like, that's not, this, or that's not that. But then I also watch, kids coming up through that are like, this is cool stuff, and then I'm trying to find a new perspective. And, I feel like there's some parallels there too.
Look, there's no one way to make great music or record great music. That if you think that way, if you even slightly think that way, please don't own a studio and try to influence others, but if you look at it and just go, I always try to have a pretty open mind, and it's pretty amazing. I mean, I think that's cool. The interesting thing we see, you mentioned the DIY idea and stuff earlier. One of the interesting things we see is that people, like when I was, 21, we started the band, it was like bass, guitar, drums, vocals. Okay, that's what you do. If I was 21 right now, I'd be like in GarageBand building up tracks, and then maybe trying to find like one other person to collaborate with. Like if I didn't feel confident as a singer, I might not have looked for the, a guitarist and a drummer to work with or something, and I would have just played most of the instruments myself and then programmed drums. So I think we see more of that. So then you have to go, okay, that's a shift, isn't it? So people are using actually kind of more of a hip hop basis for building tracks, right? Or a pop song, a way that a Katy Perry song is built. They're using that on a completely homegrown level. And so they're not looking at that and going, I don't like that style of music, so I can't work that way. They're just working the way that's in front of them. And I think that's really cool. And that's what's opening up a lot of doors to seeing female artists and engineers that just are in control of their own sounds and building their own tracks, because they start off young, say with GarageBand or what have you, and then they go, this is how I create, and then they get really good at various parts of it, of course. And now I think that's going to be a wonderful equalizer.
Yeah, so that's great. So Sadie Dupuis was who you just mentioned.
Yeah.
And she was going around interviewing a bunch of other female producers and engineers.
She made her last album, Haunted Painting, I think it's called. She made a point of only using female engineers and everything. And so mixers, et cetera, and so that was a really cool idea. But she's also been doing some interviews for TapeOp. I reached out to her, was like, would you be considered, I interviewed her, and then I was like, wait, you should interview people, so that's been
that's
fun.
cool, man.
And
That's
we've got a lot of other women that are starting to do interviews for us and stuff. I think it's been really fun. And I think that's great, because I've always loved being in bands with women, playing music, in a multi-gender band.
Yeah.
My studio manager and lead engineer here, Kendra Lynn, is a woman, of course. And our first intern assistant that we had at the studio, Joanna Balme from Stephen Malcolmus and the Jicks, was a woman, and I've always to me, that's a comfort level, like mixed gender. Like, I don't like boys club things and dudes locker talk. You just lost me if, you're living in that world,
Yeah. It's amazing that we can create professional mixes using a computer in our home studios. But trying to mix with a mouse, it's like trying to play the guitar with the tip of a pencil. It sucks. And why shouldn't you be able to mix as naturally as you play the guitar? That's why I upgraded my studio to include the SSL UF8 fader pack and UC1 channel strip controllers. They let me mix as fast as I can feel the music. Go put the fun back into your mixes at solidstatelogic.com. Atom Audio introduces the all-new A7V monitor with rotatable HPS waveguide for the accelerated ribbon tweeter and advanced onboard DSP-based room correction using the included A-Control software or optional SonarWorks software with a measurement mic, allowing you to tune your speakers for your room, your mix position, and your ears anytime you want. Get the extended 5-year warranty for monitors that will improve as your studio improves at atomaudio.com. Well, I certainly feel similarly. I welcome that, and I'm thrilled when I have some of the wonderful women engineers and producers on the show. So I'm going to have to check out Sadie's.
Oh, her music's so good. So that's also a good point to make, that it's a blast to listen to.
Yeah. Well, and it's cool when you talk about the Bandcamp thing, though. It does. I mean, not Bandcamp, excuse me, but the GarageBand production, journey of coming up with a computer, and you start figuring out how to produce some things yourself, and then you start collaborating with somebody else. One of the questions I think that inevitably comes up too is like, is our live bands, is the band and playing multiple instruments, is that a disappearing thing, or is it not a disappearing thing? What are some of your experiences with that? Do you think it's cyclical? Do you think that there are risks of styles of musicianship disappearing?
No, I don't think so. I mean, like in Portland, there's a ever growing like jazz scene, and there's great players and there's great young players. And if you look around in that scene, nationally, internationally, it's healthy. Even without getting to play gigs for a while, it's still healthy. So that's kind of amazing. You look at the folks that people are looking up to, like say Robert Glasper and all the compatriots there, like that's amazing. And that's just, you could delve into that for days, or labels like International Anthem in Chicago putting out really cool experimental jazz work. I mean, that's not even music that I'm even focused on personally. I think that's amazing. I think recording wise, making records, no. I mean, a great example is Mark Ronson. Like, people go, oh, he's a DJ. That's all he does. But look into it a little bit and see what's going on there. Oh, he plays drums, guitar, bass, keyboards. Oh, and it's like he arranges, he writes, it's like the people that really end up at the top of the game are the ones that are pretty damn versatile, Yeah. I mean, I'll bet 90% of the people building like really great, like hip hop tracks, for instance, are probably skilled at other instruments and things, or you know what I mean. It's like you don't just fall into being good at something because the machines can do it,
right,
for you, so to speak. Remember that there's an old, oh my God, Pink Floyd live at Pompeii, and they're sitting in the canteen eating eating
I
it.
totally remember that
At,
scene.
I think at Abbey Road down in the basement there. And
they all look a little too cool for school.
They're nice in her suit. And and they're talking and somebody says, like, I swear it's from that, someone's like, do you think you use a lot of technology and a lot of machines can, and Gilmore's like, the machines can't play the music the way we play it or write the song. There's some kind of comment. And you're like, yeah, it's the same age-old story. How long ago was that? Like the early 70s?
70s, yeah. I think they were programming the
they're playing with the
On the Run
VCS3
loop on the EMI Cynthia or something like that, Yeah,
it's like, they're like, look, the computers are going to replace the synthesizers replacing musicians. It's like, no, they had to beat that thing into submission to do what they wanted anyway.
Well, and I feel that every time I bust out synths to do stuff in the studio, and I get entranced by those little, doodle doodle loops, but then, it's pretty fast that it becomes incredibly boring to listen to for me if it doesn't get,
there's got to be something
by a musician.
Yeah. I mean, music doesn't, every time someone says a song falls out of thin air, it's because they did all the backstory work. They did all the work to have it able to fall out of thin air in their lap, by learning music and writing and all those things. But I mean, the idea that because someone's using a slightly different process than the Beatles used or than Les Paul used or, whoever, a million years, Rudy Valley, I mean, it doesn't mean the music's not going to be great. That's just it's just focusing way too much on the process. It's like the same thing that's been going on in normal major media these days where they say, well, now that you can do everything in a laptop, recording wise, which is absolutely incorrect.
Right.
It's like there's always a stupid story to be told, which isn't research. It isn't true. And people that want to make music are going to always be grabbing at every bits and bobs and ways of doing it and smashing together in brand new ways to make something really cool. And then you're like, oh, wow, I never thought I'd hear something like this.
When you did your cassette to cassette thing, did you invent that idea from yourself? Like, what was it? It was like Uncle McDuck, the inventor who was living on the island, with no access to society.
I lived really remotely. When I was in my teens. So, I lived on a farm, kind of a ranch in the middle of nowhere. So
nice.
Yeah, I kind of felt like that. But, I don't recall how I came to understand that this would work.
Yeah.
I just did. I knew about the concept of multi-tracking and stuff. My mom had told me a story that turned out to be about Al Cooper and Bob Dylan, where with the keyboard on, oh God, the song, "You've got a lot of nerve to say you are my friend."
Yeah,
the little keyboard part.
Al was the
a keyboard player.
Yeah, I used to own his drum machine.
Oh man,
I went to his yard sale here in Nashville.
he's a great guy, and he snuck in, played some organ, but wasn't in Bob's headphones, right? And then they go in the control room and they hear it. So I'm like, oh, so there's multiple tracks that are being tracked and combined. So my mom told me this story because she heard it somewhere. Later, I asked her. She completely said, "I don't know what you're talking about," but I know she told me this story. And so I understood that there were multi-tracks, and I think even when I was 16 or 17, I went to my friend Mikhail Graham. He had like a home studio with like a 4-track and a bunch of synthesizers and stuff, and we made some weird music on that stuff. And I knew. And my parents were friends with Doug Clifford from Creedence Clearwater Revival, the drummer. And I remember going to his house and he had like a 24-track in the basement. So, I mean, it wasn't like the idea, the technology wasn't that unknown to me, and I guess just the idea of overdubbing, it just seemed like practically like, oh, that works. You just play back and record something over the other thing,
Yeah, we're little inventors. But it's interesting too. Just imagine that same discovery today. People from around the world would know about it. They'd find each other on Instagram or social media or wherever, and have a dialogue. Back then, if my buddy Joe and Dave were doing that in the dorm room downstairs in 1986, and you were doing it in 1986 across the country, we didn't know each other.
No.
Didn't have a way to do that.
I'm trying to remember who,
except through touring. That was a good way. Touring was a good way for a dialogue to happen in the 80s.
That was an easy way. And that's really where TapeOp evolved from, was like being on tour and talking to peers and going, where are you going to make your next record? And that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
But the technology end of it. Yeah. I mean, necessity. And also here's probably the answer to one of your question earlier. When I was in high school, there was still school budgets, and we had an electronics course, and I took 2 years of electronics in high school and learned how to build things. So I built, and the best kind of projects they give you are just little oscillator projects, because oscillators are really simple to build. And so they give you oscillator projects with multiple oscillators that bump into each other and cause problems, when you combine them without really even having a mixer,
Problems equal great sounds.
Yeah, like, a lower frequency into a high, you get beats and weird noises. And so, yeah, I partly was that because I started to get and my dad taught me a little bit about electricity when I was young too. He bought me like bells and buzzers and wire and night switches.
The Radio Shack kits?
Even kind of not even like more like hardware store kits. Yeah. But Radio Shack later, those weird ones with the springs and the little clips. And wires.
I had those. I remember I had one that was supposed to be like a DIY radio broadcasting kit. And I built it in the car while we were on a road trip with the family, and I was in the back seat. And I finally did the very last wire and spring and plugged in the 9-volt battery. And then I was just on the mic, just trying to talk to the car on the highway next to us until I finally gave up because it wasn't doing shit.
When I was in college, my friend Steve Valin was a friend of mine from high school, like a year younger than me. And when we went to college, we lived together. And we built, at one point, I was living somewhere else later on, but he helped me build a FM transmitter. We set it up, and we didn't have a good power supply. Like if you tried to plug in a wall wart, it would go all bzzz. So we put batteries on it. But then if you put 9-volt batteries on it, as the batteries trained, the frequency of the station would just low.
Would drift. All of a sudden the FCC's on your door.
We made a cassette. You can make cassette loops inside of a cassette shell. I don't know if you've ever done this. And we made a cassette loop saying, we're on the air. This is radio something or other. And played it all night. And everybody the next day, people are like, oh yeah, I was at the coffee shop and your station was going. Like it obliterated the real signal.
That's great. Pirate radio with Larry Crane.
Oops. Yeah. I mean, my friend was like, if the FCC gets wind of this.
Pirate radio, but you're sailing a ship with no rudder.
We were so bad. We had a wooden antenna. Like we had a stick up, and I was living downtown. Oh, it was crazy. But
my dad bought from our neighbor. The neighbor sold my dad a CB radio with a huge antenna on the roof. Neighbor next door sold it to my dad to give to me as a birthday gift. So like he had that. My dad had the antenna installed on the roof and then gave me this old CB radio. And like, it was one of the vertical, and you grab the handle and that sort of like turns the mic on. So you could talk to truckers on the highway and go, breaker, breaker. We just sit around as kids, just completely spamming whoever would listen on the other end.
You could make your own Red Sovine story there. Like Teddy Bear, those songs like with the CB, the trucker gets a call from a poor kid who's getting terminally ill, or those stories.
Saturday afternoon special or after school special.
Dear. Yeah, or a little C.W. McCall, man, a little convoy.
Yeah. Did you were you in the habit of disassembling things?
Oh,
Did you take things apart?
Yeah, radios, etc. You know what? I just remembered. This is insane. Okay, my parents had 2 little tiny Sony reel-to-reel tape decks that they had matching ones, and they would record audio letters to each other because they spent a lot of time apart when I was young. My dad was in the Merchant Marine. So she'd mail a reel to him and then mail a reel back and just tell each other what's going on and stuff. So I had those things laying around, and they had microphones and tape and all these things. So I knew
you're like, one day I'll sample these and do a remix.
Yeah. I
but
figured
first they have to invent samplers.
I made the Eno tape loop on it, the Frippatronics Eno thing. I made him do that much, but the automatic level control made it go crazy. It was pretty strange. But, I remember messing with those. I remember taking apart, like I'd get little transistor radios and just take them apart and then wire like 40 speakers up to a little thing.
Did they ever go back together?
Better. Yeah, generally I could put things back together. That's the crazy thing.
That's where you were head and shoulders above my abilities there. No matter where you like to rock in the galaxy, the OWC Envoy Pro Electron lets you record up to 2 terabytes over USB-C with speeds of up to more than a gigabyte per second, transfer your tracks in a flash, and take your samples and sessions with you to the studio or stage. The OWC Envoy Pro Electron is your waterproof, dustproof, and crush-proof SSD that you can rely on. Use our custom link in the show notes to help support this podcast at macsales.com/rockstars. If you've ever wondered how I get a consistent sound quality mixing hundreds of episodes of Recording Studio Rockstars, it's because I've been cheating by using iZotope, RX, Ozone, and Neutron on every single episode. Right now, you're hearing on my voice RX breath control, D-click, D-clip, DS, deplosive, voice denoise, Ozone multiband compression, Neutron EQ, and limiting, all from iZotope. Check out the subscription option with an extended 30-day free trial at iZotope.com/rockstars or use the code ROCK10 to get 10% off any individual plugin purchase. I had a shortwave radio, multiband Radio Shack thing, and I used to stay up late on Sunday nights listening to Dr. Demento, the Funny Five. And then I'd take my little Panasonic recorder. My first recording experience was taking the Panasonic, pressing record on a cassette, and then jamming the microphone up against the speaker of the radio and recording the Funny Five songs to take into school, play for my best friend the next day.
I used to record stuff like that, and my mom would walk into the room, or my parents had a stereo, and one speaker was in their bedroom and one speaker was out in our living room. We lived in a little tiny house when I was young. And they had that Red album, the Beatles double album of greatest hits, like whatever, 1962 to 67 or 6 or whatever. And so we'd be listening to it, and it'd be one of those fake stereo mixes where it's all vocals or all instruments. So I remember like taking my cassette recorder, recording just the vocals and going, wait a minute, that sounds weird,
Yeah, that's awesome. I love that stuff.
And I remember recording like TV theme songs. I was like, oh, TV theme songs are cool. And I put a microphone at the end of a paper towel tube to try to eliminate outside sound. But then it got all that mechanical filtering. And I was like, well, that doesn't sound right. So there was there were a lot of weird experiments with audio when I was young, just
you think anybody's doing tin cans with the string in between them anymore?
I made those. Yeah. Yeah.
Do you think the rock stars even know about that? Is that a lost lore?
Yeah. You just take 2 tin cans, you poke a hole in the center of the bottom of the empty can, and then you just, stretch the string taut and you can talk through it,
Yeah, you could put it between houses. You could have a tight string from the upstairs windows. I'm sure that was in like Goonies or something.
Oh man, it has to be. I mean, I think it's like understanding from a young age, like being very, very curious, obviously, and understanding physics and electronics and sound and all these things, and learning by making so many mistakes was so important, there's just things I know innately, like, well, if your guitar setup's making a bunch of hum, maybe we just plug 9-volt batteries into all your pedals, like that will clean it up. And people are like, but I don't understand. I'm like, ground loops, noise that comes through these cheap transformers in your wall warts, all these things. There's so many details to all this stuff. And
yeah, I remember working with a guy out of Jackson, Mississippi, a producer, and he would talk about how he'd use pedals as part of his studio rig for effects. And he said like he'd always use batteries because it was a much cleaner signal than plugging them in. And I was like, wow.
Always.
Sounds so fancy.
Yeah. It's just being aware and just really, I think one of the biggest components of doing any of this stuff is to always be like resetting your hearing and what you expect. Don't ever expect to hear something. Like really listen to what's happening, and that's the truth of that. Like setting up a guitar amp sound, if you're not really listening, if you're just going, oh, I hear the note, that's cool, but you're not hearing the sounds around it, then you're failing. You got to learn to hear the hum, the buzz, how is it mic'd up? Is that working? Is it out of tune? Is it, there's a million things to listen for.
Do you still play? So you were playing bass in some of the early bands, guitar as well. And have you ventured out on all instruments at this point?
I still can't play drums, and I'm really like a kind of monophonic keyboard player, kind of the same way I type, But I know how to play like a Moog. I know how to make cool sounds and stuff with old synthesizers, and I know. I know what a drum part should sound like, so programming and doing MIDI and stuff is easy. I finally learned.
You know what a good drum performance sounds like versus a bad one.
Oh, I do. I do. Or good writing, that's important to understand, But a lot, I think there's some producer engineers that are great because they could just walk in and play all the instruments. But, I'm usually pretty reticent. I'm like, okay, maybe I'll, I'm working with a songwriter, I'll hire a drummer, and I'll say, I'll play bass and maybe little bits of other things, but it's got to be kind of something I can handle. It can't be, if it's complex, let's certainly hire somebody really good.
Yeah. Well, we were talking about that recently, the difference between the DIY, super musician, because I've certainly seen those. I remember one of the first records that made me think about that was a Jason Faulkner record. It was a self-recorded thing. And I heard it and I was like, wow, everything's so perfectly together.
Mm-hmm. Elliott Smith was like that. I watched him, lay songs down like Miss Misery and stuff where he might put down a metronome and like a guide guitar or something and then build the rest of the song around it. And you're like, wow, that sounds like a band playing music really well together. So there was an intent there that was put together in the arrangement properly.
Yeah. Do you sometimes feel like sometimes that goes a little bit too far, like things get too well assembled versus like when a band of different musicians, comes up with the whole is greater than the sum of the parts kind of thing?
I mean, I love that. I love tracking a real band, and I love running in the room and going, wait, what are you playing here? And coming up with changing parts just a little bit or arrangements and helping them really get it right on the floor. But, it's some people do a really good job of playing the instruments all themselves, and you can't deny that, when it works. But I'll tell you, I've never seen anyone do it as well as Elliott Smith,
Yeah.
So it's not like I've seen people try to do what he did and fail, and I'm like, they don't really have the sort of strange little vision to see it through completely, like how it's really got to fit together.
What was he like when he was recording himself like that and jumping around the instruments? What were some things what would you just notice about him that seemed to add up to great sounding music coming out of the speaker?
Just that the parts were everything had intent. The parts were very interesting, but never showing off. Or if they got busy, it was just for a spot where there was room, So it's hard to explain, like there'd be root notes, but maybe the whole notes would actually be not the root, on the bass or something. And then there would be a little chord change at a spot that you didn't hear again elsewhere. And and it would just always kind of slot together. Everything was always written. I felt like when I worked with him, like it was all pretty much written out in his head, except for the vocal harmonies. And then he'd go in and just say, leave me an open track. Let me just throw ideas around. And then he'd go, okay, I got it. He'd have to kind of find the notes for those.
So when he was playing instruments, you got the impression that he sort of knew what he was going to play as opposed to
he wasn't searching.
Having to experiment.
Was not. I mean, not much. I mean, he might walk over and like play with some organ stops or something. But it was pretty amazingly, all played with very much focus and intent towards what it was going to be. And, but then there were times we'd track something And he'd just be kind of like, let's go get a whiskey. Fuck this. You could tell he wasn't 100% like feeling that it was the right path. So he would, and I'd see that being his archivist. I see like versions after versions of certain songs, different keys, different arrangements, different instrumentation. So it wasn't always like a home run, but it was like as he moved on and as time went by, it seemed like at least things I worked on him with or watched him work on, it was like there wasn't much wasted energy or time,
Yeah. What would be the time frame, the length of time in the studio from sort of starting a song to getting it to a point of all the instruments are there and the vocals and stuff?
3 hours or something. I mean,
wow.
But not the vocal. Usually track the instruments, take home a cassette, come back, sing it later.
Right. Okay.
So there was, maybe half the lyrics were written and the feel of it was there and it just had to be sort of finalized. I remember that with Miss Misery for sure.
Yeah.
Other songs he kind of had the words worked out sometimes, but.
Where would the song start? Would it come from an acoustic guitar, a finger-picked kind of thing to begin with?
It depends on the song structure. Yeah. Sometimes that. A lot more times a click track was involved than people would suspect. And sometimes it would be guitar or piano, electric guitar or piano with a click track, and then build on that, and then throw those away and then recut them in some cases just to make sure things locked into drums,
Right. Once the drums are down, then that becomes your new bass line to make sure you're playing to that.
Yeah, that's a really important way to do that usually. And I learned a lot watching them, but it was always pretty quick. It was like, oh, okay, boom, we're done.
Yeah, you better be paying attention, right?
Yeah, don't get in the way, don't throw dumb ideas in there, and stay out of the way and let it happen. Yeah. You make it sound okay,
Would he ever get frustrated with you?
No, I don't think so. I don't remember anything like that. I'd be frustrated with him. I mean, honestly, at some point it was like he kept coming. He was not living in town after the first 6 months of the studio being in business, and he wasn't a partner. He was like, you're going to work out of here. We'll prorate your time here. You help me put this together. You'll get this discount that just covers the time.
Right.
Which I never charged him for, but he'd come through town and I'd be like working like nonstop all the time, like I was saying earlier, and it'd be like my day off, and he'd be like, "Can you record me Sunday?" And I'd be like, "Fuck no!" Like, and get Joanna to do it, and so she did like say Baby Britain from his EXO album was tracked by her, because I was just burned out. I was like, I wasn't even like I didn't want to be working with him because working with him was a pleasure, but it was like I didn't have days off, for years.
Yeah.
I was so tired. I wish I'd done those sessions now, looking back.
Yeah, EXO is such an incredible record.
Yeah.
Those songs are so good.
Yeah.
Baby Britain's fantastic. I don't have all the song titles off the top of my head, but
yeah. Oh, it's over the top. I worked on what's that song? Amity. It's probably people's least favorite song on the album. But The Rocker. I worked on that one. Yeah,
that's a great one.
Yeah, that's a cool one.
Well, right on, man. Well, let's see. Let's keep digging into talking about what's happening with you with being the archivist for Elliott Smith. Do you want to record killer drums in your home studio? Rockstars of Drums will show you how to record, edit, and mix pro-sounding drums with examples from a Nashville session drummer in a Grammy-winning studio. Do you want to know how to master your own music at home? Rockstars of Mastering will show you how with plugins in your DAW so that your music will sound awesome when you finish your mixes. And if you're looking for a step-by-step solution for a pro-sounding mix that won't take years to learn, the Ultimate Mixing Masterclass with Craig Alvin will show you a proven method for creating Grammy-winning quality mixes that you can apply in your home studio right now. Or if you just need to learn the fundamentals of creating a great sounding mix, then register for my free course Mix Master Bundle to get great mixes using simple free plugins. And get started now making your best record ever at recordingstudiorockstars.com/academy. Use the code ROCKSTAR at checkout to get 10% off any course for a limited time. Every studio needs a good vintage mic for that classic warm sound. Whether you're looking for those airy highs, sweet mid-range, or silky low-end, a good vintage mic can put the magic in your mixes. So it's no wonder vintage mics have been loved and praised by thousands of engineers for decades. The JZ Microphone Vintage Series are built by hand in Latvia using only the best electronic components and feature the patented Golden Drop capsule design for great detail and richness of tone that will bring that classic vintage vibe to your studio and be a real workhorse for your sessions. This time, our friends at JZ Microphones have come up with a special offer only available to you, Rockstars. Use the limited time coupon ROCKSTAR to get 40% off the Vintage Series mics V67, V47, and V12, the mic you're hearing right now, at jzmic.com. Hey, Rockstars, we're back now for the jam session, a.k.a. the second half of the show, a.k.a. what else am I going to call it? This is Larry Crane joining us. Larry, you ready to jam, dude? Jamming. All right. So let's see. Where did I just leave off? I just left off with a question to you about working with Elliott and, what's going on with the archival stuff? Do you have some recent news? I mean, of course, this was coming. Yeah. We're recording this before it comes out, but still. I know you got a lot of cool stuff.
Yeah, I mean, recently, I can't ever talk about anything that hasn't come out yet, but we've remastered the second self-titled and either or albums in the last 5-6 years, whatever it was. We did remastered versions that are like with bonus tracks that are like extra. How would you put it? You don't have to buy them. You can buy the original old school master as the regular standalone format or stream it or whatever. But these are like, mastered from the original DAT tapes and things like that.
Oh, cool.
I just trying to clean them up a little and present them a little better. It was a real interesting. I worked with Adam Gonsalves at Telegraph Mastering, who's a really great guy here in Portland. And, and I sourced the bonus tracks and mixed them and prepped them, and I prepped all the, album tracks. So those projects, there's one, the self-titled album has a whole live album on it, which is really, it was really a lot of experimentation, like, trying different cassette speeds and all kinds of stuff to get the audio off of this original cassette. And there were 2 cassettes, and I had to figure out which was the original and all kinds of stuff like that.
You had to go back to the original multi-track cassette and
stuff? There was there was one that had been recorded in a 4-track cassette recorder, but just using 2 channels of it. And actually what it ended up being is really like finding a cassette recorder of the type that had been used so that the tape lined up identically.
Wow.
So they can be really different.
How in the world, that's got to be so unnerving to try and be extremely careful with the master tape as an archivist when it's a cassette and you have to just pop it in and then the lid goes ka-chunk.
And there it is.
And you just hit that rewind or play button.
Yeah, don't hit record.
Don't hit record, yeah.
Yeah.
You pop out the little tabs.
Oh, yeah, definitely. Yeah, the tabs. Keep it from doing that. I mean, it's frightening every time you put up a reel or anything. I've done a lot of tape transfers for people lately, too. And it's always a little bit frightening when you get the tape and with the reels, at least you can bake the tapes, to get the moisture out and hopefully they're going to play back without shedding, which is the complete utter nightmare of tape. But, with the cassette one, cassettes are strangely robust. I don't know why, and you can probably keep using them if they're half decent quality for years. And so most of those have been
That's
okay.
Maybe that's just because it's such a small format. Maybe it's just very light.
I don't know. The tape is really thin. The Mylar.
I mean, they weren't that robust in my car cassette player sometimes.
Yeah. I mean, the thing that I think when I say robust, it's like without obviously baking them, because if you bake the plastic, I don't know that you end up in a good place. But without doing that and just taking a cassette and dropping it in and hitting play and it plays back, it's kind of amazing how more often than not they work. And if they do break, you can splice them, carefully.
I'm trying to remember when I met Rob Christenden, he was talking about that was his initial involvement with you had something to do with cassettes, didn't it?
Oh, cassette releases. Yeah.
Cassette releases,
Yeah.
right?
His first albums were on cassette.
Oh yeah, he was helping to, wasn't he helping to review music that was coming into TapeOp?
He did the Cassette Corner reviews, which turned into Under the Radar later. He was helping with that. He was living down in Eureka, Arcata, that area, the Northern California coast, and just dropped a line. I think he found a copy of TapeOp at a record store there, and dropped me a line and ended up writing for us, moving up here for a while. And stuff.
I met him with you at one of the NAMM events.
Yeah.
And he was manning the booth with you.
Yeah, totally. We got a photo of him in the next issue at TapeOp. We got a photo of him.
Oh, that's awesome. Well, that'll be out before this.
Yeah.
But so that'll be great for everybody to see that.
Yeah.
And then I think I shared maybe with you at one point a funny anecdote about Rob that he generously sent me a copy of his CD of his original music.
Yeah.
And I was listening to it in the car and I was like, oh, this is totally cool and rocking out. And I sent him a voice message saying, like, hey, dude, I'm jamming on one of your songs right now years ago. And then it got stuck. You know how sometimes this CD would get stuck in our CD player. So Rob, I had your, wherever you are now listening, I had your CD stuck in my car for a long time, many months.
My car.
Probably till the end of that car.
My wife and I share a car and it has like a 7-disc changer and all the discs are stuck in it and won't come out. So we just got the empty box. They won't even play them. It won't let them out. It won't do anything. It's like, how do you get them out of the dashboard?
You don't. Man. You just listen to the same thing forever.
Throw the records away.
So doing the cassette archiving, what were some other things from just your experience of remastering, re-archiving?
The biggest thing is just that initial, like, okay, let's get all the reel-to-reel tapes, everything we can get in one place, and then have somebody do all the transfers. That was the most amazing. That took me really like a solid year of after the transfers were done, plus organizing the transfers and getting things shipped around. We were so...
Right, because you're not going to one place to transfer all these different formats? Well,
initially, most everything was. There was a place called Mr. Toad's that my friend Tarden Feathered ran in the Bay Area, and he did really almost all of the stuff that's in the archive now. We did a lot of the DAT transfers, I think, up here. I had Kendra doing some of those at Jackpot, and sometimes the cassette stuff I would do, or sometimes we'd send it out. So a lot of it, Tarden had a lot of different formats and noise reduction things, all kinds of stuff in his place. He's no longer in business, I guess, but he did an amazing job. And there's places now, there's like Sonicraft on the East Coast. There's audio archiving, I think it's called, down in LA. Dan runs a really great place there. There's places doing that kind of work that I send people to for certain stuff. And I do some transfers here, but a lot of times if I'll see the reel, I won't even let people drop off reels now without sending lots of photos. I'm like, I want to see track sheets. I want to see the spine of the reel. I want to see the reel itself, a photo. And they're always like, because people can't even recognize what, like +6 over, 350 nanowebers per meter, they don't know what that means at all. It sounds like gibberish. So if I can see that, it helps me, or no NR. What does that mean? To most people, to me, I know it means no noise reduction, thankfully.
It doesn't mean nonner?
Nonner. And there's all that, 15 IPS, 30 IPS, how many tracks are on the reels, that there's so much information. And half the time people bring tapes over, they're like, it's a 2-inch. Okay, it's a 1-inch tape. When they get here, I'm like, I don't have a 1-inch tape deck. So I'm really trying to be strict on that. But the archiving thing, I'm really glad I got to help Elliott's family with it. I've got a bunch of work. I need to drop his parents a line and say, I got to do all this stuff and like update things, But, most of the stuff that's out there has been archived and found. And there's a couple reels that are probably missing forever. It's sad, but.
Yeah. Did you ever do any work with his earlier band Heat Miser?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I've got most of their stuff's in the archive too. Anything that they had copies of, and I talked to the guys in that band if they need copies of stuff or whatever, it's all fully
somewhere
available.
I've got a Heat Miser CD because I remember going to the record store and it was like Heat Miser, Elliott Smith's original band, and
Oh my God.
Post-it note on the outside of the CD. That's one of the things I love about going to record stores is when you get that whole, inner weaving of the network of music and it helps you discover things.
Yeah, man, I haven't been in a record store now in 2 years. Yeah. I miss them, I like that. I like just seeing,
they're still out there.
I know.
They're waiting for you.
There's some great ones in Portland for sure.
Yeah. Hopefully by the time this comes up, you'll have the chance to do that.
Yeah, I might.
Well, let's see. And now some other, any more stuff you want to talk about doing the archive stuff with Elliott Smith recently?
I mean, right now we're working on maybe getting some like digital only collections together of things like an album plus a related tracks from that era. So that's kind of a cool thing. And there might be more of that coming up. But really with that work, it's more just like only if there's a release, is there anything to do? And then I can't say anything until the press release comes out. But right now, honestly, there's nothing to tell you, even if I could.
Yeah.
But
what about 3D holographic duet projects? Or
oh God,
like that? We got that comment.
Well, like someone, I know a certain streaming service asked about doing like an Atmos version of either or Elliott's either or.
Right.
And I'm like, I can't even do a new stereo mix of this album. I don't have all the materials. There's tracks that have bits that were flown in at mastering and synced up. Like I don't have the multi tracks for that. There's a lot of funny little things. There's missing reels. It's like you can't remix a record. You could process it.
I'd sure love to hear what Elliott would do if he actually was composing all his vocal harmonies in an Atmos setup where he was like, I'm going to put this voice over there.
He would be so disinterested in that. I can guarantee you. People always ask about like things like, the details of it and what Elliott was into. I was like, no, he just wanted to get the song done, man. He wasn't like a great recording engineer on his own. He just was a great arranger. So even when he got a crummy sound on something, it all fit together still.
Were there any particular recording studio tools that he generally disliked? Were there certain microphones or anything where it's like, no, we're not using that piece of shit?
No. When we first opened Jackpot, we only had like 6 mics. It wasn't much to choose from. Yeah. We went to the store one day and he bought an RE20, which I still have. And that's a wonderful mic, of course,
What'd you guys use it on? What instruments?
I think kick drum initially and guitar amps and bass guitar amps, that kind of stuff.
Never a vocal mic?
I don't remember using it for that. He had a Longevin CR3A, and I went and bought one too. So we had a pair of those eventually. And those are great vocal mics.
And that's a condenser?
Yeah. And it's also really good on guitar amps. Manley was building them. They're just like a, solid state. And it was based on the old Longevin name, but not the same company. It's like the old AM16 mic pre's and stuff. But real good quality and just a decent mic. I've used that for a lot of recordings still, voiceovers and stuff.
Nice.
And electric amps, guitar amps, great. Just really clear sound. But yeah, we didn't have any mics. I don't remember Elliott ever being irritated with stuff, but later on, after he'd been like recorded at Abbey Road and Sunset Sound and stuff, he was so spoiled and I remember him telling Quasi not to do their record with me. That he's like, why? Oh God, why go to Jackpot? It's so limited. Oh God, and they're like, we don't have any money, Elliott. We're not, nobody's bankrolling a trip to Abbey Road, so he got kind of snooty there at some point. But then he built his own studio, a New Monkey and stuff. And then he was working out of there. So I think he kind of went a little full circle just to get control back, at the end too, which is interesting. I'm not saying control from Rob Schnapp and Tom Rothrock as producer, engineer, collaborators. It really wasn't a push against them. It was more like labels and stuff like that. And he was really in this, with DreamWorks and that era of XO and Figure 8, he was really in this major label thing, which was, like they're never going to let you recoup. you know?
Right.
And they're like, oh, sure, go spend the money anywhere you want. And go, you know, when he was making XO, he was staying at the Mondrian in Hollywood, you know, which is like, I don't know, what, $800 a night, you know? And I'm like, rent him an apartment down the street. It would be cheaper. It just was stupid, you know, to watch that kind of money being wasted. And just to me, I would get antsy. We'd go into Sunset Sound in the morning. I went down there for a week and stayed with him while he was making XO. And we'd go into the studio. We'd be in the control room or something, or the lobby or lounge. And I'd be antsy that we weren't just moving really fast and getting a ton done, because I'm like, this place is like $1,200 a day. And then there'd be a guy running, doing your sandwich runs. And you're like, that's an extra $400, you know, like you know.
Right. Little did you know that time in the studio in the fancy hotel was the payout.
That's all he got. Yeah. Right. Yeah. I mean, as far as I could tell, I mean, he got more money from his publishing contract, honestly, you know, than he probably got from the label.
Any cool tips on recording an acoustic guitar that you and Elliott arrived at, as far as like, were there certain mics, or was there certain mic placement that seemed to get you guys excited about the acoustic?
I've always been like a 12th fret join kind of person, you know, just put something near there. I don't remember ever like spending much time talking. Yeah, so much of this stuff was just like, if it worked good enough, it was done. You know, I think on Miss Misery, I think it's a Pro 37R Audio-Technica mic, which is a really inexpensive mic, but it's the neat thing about that mic is it doesn't have a lot of shrill top end. So even if you're sliding up and down the strings or something, it's not noisy. But the thing about him is he would do, this is like the difference between people that want to make these recordings and people that make the great recordings, is like, he would play something and know that he could play it better. So he would just take care of that himself. Like if he heard his hand squeaking on the chord changes, he'd go, oh, that's not going to work. You know,
right.
He could evaluate, like as a recording musician, what was good and what was bad right away. So that would, you know, and it wouldn't be like you do a whole take, you come in and listen, then you turn around and go do it again. It would be like before you even got 1/8
so in the headphones.
He'd go, oh, wait a minute. Okay, I got to do that better. You know, we punch in something, whatever. I mean, he was really aware of how the recording process affected the end result and how the musicians playing worked with all that. And I think that it's just like a higher level of that from recording himself for years and years and years since he was like early teens, I think.
At the risk of repeating ourselves, because I don't remember if we talked about headphones last time, but what are some thoughts you have about that, about headphone monitoring that works great for you at Jackpot, or stuff that you have set up, or, you know, there's obviously there's all these new options. There's Ethernet, do your own mix boxes and all that stuff. Have you had experience with those and found that they're just fine, or have you had experiences and found like you prefer a simpler or a different setup for headphone monitoring?
Well, like here, we've got that Furman HRM16, HDS16 system, which uses the Centronics 50-pin connectors to distribute all the audio paths.
Yeah, I had an accordion that had those.
Oh my God, they're nasty.
It was an old Cordovox.
Oh my God, they're the worst connectors ever to solder. I made Kendra do all the soldering.
I call them SCSI connectors.
Yeah, they're like SCSI. They're like old printer connectors from the dark ages of computers.
You hook them on, then you have to go.
Yeah, they click into place with little clips. I mean, they're horrible, and Furman stopped making any of their headphone system stuff a while back. So we wired the whole studio for those. We wired like 50 cable. We had 2 pairs of 25 conductor like telephone wire cables that we ran through the walls and the floor, and then they have the SCSI connectors on the walls, and so we set the whole studio up for those, and it's great because it's an all analog 16 channel with talkback and an aux send system that every musician can make their own mix. There's 8 or 4. Wait, 8. I can't remember how many channels. Oh yeah, there's like 8 mono channels and then 4 stereo channels, and you can make your own mix. and it's all analog. There's no latency. There's no conversion. There's nothing to worry about, which I really liked.
And significant power.
Yeah, each box can power 2 headphones easily, and low impedance ones easily too, if needed. So I love those. I love that system. I love that it's all analog, and we have the master unit in here at our TT Patch Bay. I have, since they went out of production, I've bought 3. I have 3 master units, and I think about 10 of the headphone mixer boxes.
Wow, you're just ready. You're ready for a headphone Mageddon.
Yeah, I got, in case anything goes down, I can swap them out, because I was like, okay, here's the thing. If we ever had to rewire our system for a whole different type of headphone mixer, we'd have to redo all these connectors. It'd be a nightmare. So I just bought and bought and bought. I'd be on eBay and Reverb just buying them up, especially, right now they're at a lull. They're cheaper than they used to be. So maybe in 5 years, I'll have like 100 of them. I'll just sell them. I'll be like Chris Mara. I'll refurb them and sell them. It'll be like, Larry headphones. I'll call it my own brand.
Well, I remember when I was producing a record in the late 90s, and it was the time where I was really sort of trying to work with major labels and do all that stuff. And we went down and mixed a record with Tom Lord Alge in Florida. Mm-hmm. And one of the comments he made was, he said, when he finds something that works for his studio and his setup, he's like, I'd immediately just buy 5 of them and just have them ready to go. Because, you got to have your backups if you want to really have a system.
Oh.
And, we live in this world now where it's like, you turn around, you take a coffee break and come back, and it's like, what do you mean I have to upgrade? Download the upgrade for the software already.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, this studio is built to be, it's not just a space for me, which should be evident from our conversations earlier, but it's a place that other people can work out of as engineers and producers and stuff, as well as staff engineers and our manager, Kendra, as well. So it's a space that when Kendra and I designed it, it was all set up to be very simple to figure out. And one of the things I designed in was as much redundancy as possible. So say like we have Otari MX80 tape decks. We have 2 of them. Actually, we have 3. One's in my garage for parts. And we have 16-track head stack on one and a 24-track head stack on the other. We can swap head stacks and cards between the tape decks in case one of them went down. We have and we have extra head stacks for each type. 16-track Otari MX80 head stacks, which are incredibly rare, and we have extra 24-track. And then we have modules for our Rupert Neve Designs 5088. We have extra spare modules to swap in and out. If that really went down and you had to like track or do something, you could build a mixer in Pro Tools and utilize that. We have Burl motherships as our main converters. We have 2 of them.
Nice.
So in case everything went to shit, so to speak, we can just put all the boxes, they're modular. We can just load one of them that's still working up and have 32, 24 ins, 32 outs, I think it is. So, we have a monitor ST, a dangerous monitor ST that we do for monitor controllers. We have an extra one up in the front in the box, just in case that goes out. And there's other things. There's extra sets of speakers, and there's extra, there's an extra set of NS10s upstairs in the box I've never even seen, that I bought from a friend, So I, have a lot of gear. I mean, there's hundreds of mics here now. There's not 6 or whatever that Elliott and I had, and there's lots of gear so you can keep running. And lately I'm waiting for Pro Tools to be able to work on the Apple M1s properly. I want to get 2 Mac Minis that are the new model M1s or M2s if they're out then. As soon as all the plugins and everything and the UAD systems and everything work with them. And I want to just have 2 laptops that are completely like cloned from each other. And if one of the computer acts weird, you just swap out the whole computer.
Atom Audio introduces the new A7V monitor for home and pro studios, the next generation of the incredibly popular A7X. The all-new A-series line of monitors delivers the same highly accurate, transparent sound and unique accelerated ribbon tweeter design that has made Atom Audio famous for over a decade, but now introduces new innovations such as the rotatable high-frequency propagation system waveguide, allowing the XART tweeter to disperse sound with controlled consistency, and DSP-based room correction and speaker voicings. Using the A-Control software or SonarWorks and a measurement mic, you can now integrate advanced filters directly onto the DSP on board the speaker to help compensate for imperfect room acoustics without introducing annoying latency or requiring plugins. This allows you to tune your monitors for your room, your mix position, and your ears anytime you want to meet your ever-evolving studio needs. Get the extended 5-year warranty for monitors that will improve as your studio improves at atomaudio.com. For 15 years, I recorded hundreds of bands like Jack White, Adele, and the Black Keys in my hay bale studio at the Bonnaroo Festival. I had to work fast and deliver finished mixes to the radio DJs within an hour, so I chose to use the solid-state Logic AWS 948 Plus for my mixing console. There's just no substitute for mixing on a real console. Until now, that is. SSL brings you the UF8 and UC1 controllers so that you can recreate the feel and speed of mixing on a console with the flexibility of mixing on your computer in your home studio. Paired with the SSL Channel Strip 2 and 4000B plugins, you can now get a world-class sound using real faders and real knobs to mix as fast as your ears will guide you. Levels, panning, EQ, and compression, they're all built right into the controllers. So go put the feeling back into your mixes at solidstatelogic.com. I'm doing the M1 thing right now, and I got it working, but I don't think it's not 100% working.
Yeah.
I think it's still on the Rosetta thing, not totally on Silicon or whatever it is. It's kind of behind the scenes, but you know when it's not doing the magic trick yet, when the computer's still giving you the same old kind of choke stories that the old computer gave you. It's better. But it's still there a little bit.
I can't afford to be in that position, like the studio has to be open and ready to run all the time. So we're just, I almost thought about buying computers and messing around at home with it to try to see if they're working yet. But
it took me 2 weeks to just get it moved over from the old computer to the new. And my bit of advice is don't do the, migration assistant. Just start fresh on the new computer.
I've done that before for Pro Tools systems because you just can't. You've got to be careful. You don't want to have a bunch of garbage, preferences and things in the cache and all these things that can cause problems.
Yeah.
Yuck.
Well, let's see. Some other projects you've been working on. Melanie and Poison Idea were a couple of things you mentioned.
Yeah, it's kind of funny. I'd never expected to be, and I don't really make a lot of my income from being an archival type person or something, but I feel like I've gotten pretty good at decoding and repairing and stuff like that with audio. So the Melanie job was a couple of years ago. A woman that works with her approached me, and she's local, not Melanie, but the woman that's working with me. I found some tapes in a bar, and I don't quite know the whole story. I'm not sure how much I can even say, but I don't know enough to say much. And so it was like, what do we do with these? I looked at the tapes. I said, send them to Sonicraft, get them cleaned up. They were dirty. Open reels with dirt on them. It was crazy. So all this stuff has gotten transferred over slowly over time. And one of the things was a concert from, I think, 1974. I think it's just called Melanie Live now. It's out on LP and streaming and stuff. And I got to remix, or mix it. It had been a broadcast done for the BBC. So it was done in London at a,
I have to confess, I don't know anything about Melanie.
Melanie. Okay. Well, Melanie played at Woodstock. She's a songwriter. She's unfortunately best known for I've got a brand new pair of roller skates, you've got a brand new key, that song, which is
nice.
Kind of a novelty-ish song,
Yeah.
She's got an amazing catalog from that era, like early 70s. Just an incredible voice, an incredible songwriter. Really, I've talked to her on the phone. She's just absolutely wonderful in person. And so she has an amazing career back then. This record I mixed, the people from the Incredible String Band were playing with her on the concert for some of the songs. And that's a really iconic, underground folk thing from the UK to even talk about and to get to mix their tracks, let alone. And the concert had been broadcast on the BBC, so fans had these pretty rough, off the radio quality cassette versions of it for years. And I got to go into the multi-tracks and remix from that, which was, I think there were 16 track. Yeah, 16 track. And the craziest thing was I found out that her acoustic guitar mic, which is almost every single, I don't think that's all she basically plays the whole concert, had a bad tube. And you can hear it go, that weird little sound, when tubes are going bad.
iZotope.
Yeah, so and it was constant, but not constant enough to be constant. It was like here and there and really loud and then gone. And it was so much work. I mean, I was iZotope RX, days.
So
of it.
I know you've talked about that. You've become quite an expert at iZotope RX.
I know. I feel like I'm not an expert, but I know how to use it really well. So I guess that does make me an expert. But I don't know I don't feel like it's like Pro Tools. I don't know everything it can do. You know what I mean?
Right. No, well, that's what interns are for. They teach me what the latest features are.
Show me the shortcuts. But,
they're like, I didn't know you could swipe across that, make it all do it at once.
But yeah, iZotope RX to me is my favorite thing that software has brought us, recording software. I mean, if this had existed years ago, it would have made my life better. It just allows spectral repair, basically, in very many different permutations of doing spectral repair. You can de-noise, de-hiss, take clicks and pops and bumps out of things, and you can de-ess really, really roughly recorded vocals, and you can really do a lot of repair functions that are just fantastic.
Can you describe the repair step by step a little bit, as far as when you had this scratchy tube on the acoustic? What would that process look like for you? As best as fair enough to ask.
Eventually, I figured something out. I can't remember. I did something really crazy. I think it was so intermittent and so crazy. I figured out you sample a sound to do like a bulk, like say, get rid of tape hiss. You sample a bit of the sound by itself. And you capture a noise profile, and then you go and you take that out of the audio track. And in this case, I think I created a fake noise profile, like with white noise and stuff, and fed that in, and then made it go through the track and take out anything that felt like white noise, like and it worked. It wasn't really something from the session; it was something I created with other sounds and put in there, and I was able to wipe out a lot of it because it was just so intermittent and all over the place.
Yeah, like you could manually do some of it by hand, but it was so often.
It was so often, and it wasn't really working right. All the different functions within iZotope RX kind of work in slightly different ways. For removing sounds. I mean, it's the same basic technology, but they attack the sound, they locate and get rid of the sounds in different ways. So in some ways, when you use like the hiss removal type one, the noise, I forget what it's even called, spectral noise removal or something. And, when you use that, it can work in a softer way than going to each single one and doing spectral repair. So yeah, that somehow I was able to actually clean that track up quite a bit because it's her acoustic guitar. It's like every song is like strum sing, and the mics sounded fantastic. They're probably smaller Neumanns or something. They just both sounded incredibly good.
Tube mics through tube pre's recorded to
Yeah,
tape.
by professionals, I mean, I bet they didn't hear that mic because it's a live show. It's the pressure of making a live mix for BBC. You're in a venue where it's noisy. You can't monitor properly. They probably just didn't catch that thing was kind of, and it's so intermittent. It was like, it'd go like 2 songs without making a sound. And then it's like, noise. Oh, heartbreaking. But man, I feel like I did a really good job in the mixes. We did a little bit of back and forth with the members of Incredible String Band and Melanie and Melanie's son's also an audio engineer, and so we just kind of conferred and it was a fun project. So that was really great to get to do, and then
I was going to say, so just for some of the concept of this for the rock stars who haven't gotten into this yet, you actually taught me about the technique of starting with the track in Pro Tools, and then I think using RX Connect to send it over to the RX app, and it opens up in a separate app on your screen.
Absolutely.
And you work on it for a sec.
I'd
send it back.
I don't think I use any of the plugins that are there. So there are iZotope RX plugins that do declick and dehiss.
I use those all the time. You're gonna be hearing those plugins on this mix right now, Rockstars.
They're great. They're better for post. A lot of that stuff is really more engineered for post than it is for music. And that's totally understandable why, but I use it in music all the time. But I almost completely export to the standalone version and re-import my tracks just because I just have a lot more control and a big, huge visual of the track in spectral view is really important.
Yeah, you had some cool things to say on the last episode about how it lets you do things like if you're going to use a low cut and cut out stuff below 100 on a sound, this lets you do that without sort of damaging the frequencies above.
It's like linear EQ. So, most of EQ is not. Yeah. So it's like you're just removing the part you don't want. You're not creating like a weird EQ bump above that, which I'm sure I mentioned last time. I mean, there's a lot of stuff you can do. You can, I go in and if the vocal, like especially a live thing, like if the singer's moving away from the mic and getting off the mic and then coming back on the middle of a line, I'll increase the low end of fundamentals of the vocal line in the parts where she's off mic.
So you don't hear the proximity disappear.
Yeah. So you can do stuff like that. Leave the high end alone because usually that stays kind of similar. And I do that with a lot of tracks I'm mixing for studio projects too.
Would that be something that you would do? Like if you were going to do that with clips in Pro Tools, you might chop out a section, re-EQ that clip, and then crossfade it back together? Or do you do that within RX, or do you actually get to sort of draw a little automation line for increasing volumes of certain fundamentals?
I'm just taking the whole waveform as a whole, dropping it in, working in the standalone, and I'm not drawing anything. I'm highlighting the region and then increasing its an attenuation. I'm bringing the volume up. Yeah, it's not like attenuation.
Where somebody backs away from the mic, then you can select from here to here and then just sort of re-EQ it
Use
a little bit.
A cursor function that creates like a little box or even a lasso, and then just turn that up. Yeah.
Are there challenges with crossfading the before into this new edit and back out
when
again?
you're in the standalone thing? There's no crossfades. There's nothing. You have the whole audio file in front of you, and then it puts the audio file back into the session. When you highlight a little region of an audio track or clip, and then send it back, then you do have to pay attention to crossfades because it'll insert a new bit of audio. It cuts the waveform. So sometimes those create like using autotune where you get those horrible bumps where you crossfade.
Oh yeah.
It'll create stuff like that sometimes. Not as bad as autotune does. Hey guys, fix that at autotune. Hey, can you fix that? Fix it so it doesn't do that. You can do all this other stuff. You can't fix that. Anyway.
The thing that always freaks me out with vocal tuning stuff is when I bring something back in and I thought it was sounding good. And then once it's back in the mix, I notice that it like freaks out the reverb tails of words and things like that. And, the room sounds in between. And then I'm like, I got to figure out how to cut that back together.
Oh, yeah.
You have some great teaching online, Larry. Do you already have some RX teaching stuff?
There is some. There's on my LinkedIn learning courses, there's some stuff where I show RX stuff. The way I formatted my later, I haven't done any in a few years, and I might not do anymore. I don't know. But the way I formatted it was just like a lot of tips and tricks, basically. I think Real Recording School Weekly is my main one that's full of like all sorts of stuff. So it doesn't follow like a linear, like, here's how to use iZotope RX. Like, it doesn't have a format like that. Although I think there might be courses on LinkedIn that other people do that are like that. But
probably. I just like the unique way with which you use it and the way you've described it on the podcast. It's very cool.
It's very, I mean, everything I do is very, I feel like kind of a caveman, and I'm just doing a handful of certain things that I know work. I was looking over to see if I had a piece of tape that I put on I made a bunch of shortcuts with the function keys, and I go, but a lot of stuff I do is really boneheaded, and a lot of it, I just use the gain control set to infinite reduction, like cutting out the low rumble on a vocal, or deplosiving stuff, or, cleaning up tops and tails of tracks. And
I know it also has like a gain leveling feature where you can actually go there and it'll write volume rides to try and keep something.
Yeah, I haven't played with that. I've done the one where it tears it'll take a mix of something and disassemble it a little bit.
The rebalance.
Yeah, that's kind of handy for certain things, but you got to be very careful. But you can take a dry vocal and a stereo mix and then create a track to send a reverb, because you never hear that track, things like that. And I've used oh God, that made me the rebound. The other one made me think of something. Oh my God, I forgot what it was. But I use mouth declick constantly. That's the one plugin or feature that I use all the time on the vocal tracks. And it's if you come up with your own custom setting and set it just enough to take out all the little sounds, and it'll work really well.
Oh, we won't hear those because I've already taken them out.
If you clean them up, I'll make sure those sounds, that's going to stay in there. I hope, maybe. I mean, it's really, for me, it all comes down to that same sort of thing of intent, So like for me, a lot of this, when I get songs to mix, I use iZotope to get things ready. And I clean up the hum on the amps. I clean up the bass guitar noises and noisy squeaks on the chord changes. And I prep.
Now, you do the squeaks manually, or do you use the guitar de-squeaker plugin?
Is there one?
There is. Yeah, there's a guitar one now that sort of
I got to try
address the pick attack, address the de-squeak and hum, I think. But I find that sometimes the manual one works best for me, and I use the spectral denoise a lot.
Yeah, spectral denoise is like massive, for guitar amps and hum and ground loops. That's constant, and I didn't even know about the guitar stuff, but I'll just go through and I'll use spectral repair, and I'll just or just even the gain plugin with like minus 6 dB, and just highlight something and go just bring it down a little, so that it's still there, like a guitar squeak as you change chords. It's still there and it feels natural, but it just doesn't dominate the mix,
Yeah. There's a lot of junk that needs to get cleaned up in a podcast or music mix. Boomy pops on the microphones, piercing sibilants, background noise, harshness, distortion, wild dynamics, and EQ correction. And all this editing and mixing cleanup would be impossibly time-consuming were it not for the magic of iZotope RX, Ozone, and Neutron. iZotope gives you a collection of plugins for mixing in your DAW to manage plosives, clicks, S's, noise, buzz, reverb, breaths, and even guitar fret squeaks with set it and forget it simplicity. Check out the new Repair Assistant plugin to help you find the perfect mix prep settings for any instrument. And the standalone RX app includes new features like text transcription and multiple speaker recognition for easy editing and navigation. Try out the subscription option with an extended 30-day free trial at iZotope.com/rockstars, or use the code ROCK10 to get 10% off any individual plugin purchase. The OWC Envoy Pro Electron is your super fast and rugged pocket-sized portable USB-C SSD that keeps your music safe in the studio or on the stage. With storage of up to 2 terabytes and speeds of up to more than a gigabyte per second, the OWC Envoy Pro Electron gives you high-speed audio data for recording and playback. Take your sessions and sample libraries with you anywhere you go. Built for reliability, the OWC Envoy Pro Electron is waterproof, dustproof, and crush-proof, so there's no need to worry about your music anymore. Find the new Envoy Pro Electron and all your storage needs at macsales.com/rockstars and use the custom link below in our show notes because it's a great way for you to help support this podcast. So thanks, Rockstars. One of the ways that I use it, I don't export the whole file to the RX editor like you do. Not often. Sometimes I do that. I guess I don't know. I haven't learned how to navigate around super fast in the editor. But one of the things that I might find myself doing a lot is the very last chord of a song and the guitar buzz comes up. Yeah. And I'll just select that last beat, the last hit, crash of the song to the end, put the RX, spectral denoiser on it. And I think I just put it in what it's called flexible mode or whatever, where it's just interpretive, where you don't even really have to set anything or do the noise profile. And it does a great job of getting the buzz out of there. And then I'll just crossfade that back into that last hit so that,
I mean, you can do that.
Such a quick, easy way to do it.
Open up a single band EQ and put a low pass filter on it and just process it and render it. And then put the track back in, put a crossfade. It'll do the same thing. So that's like the low budget version. But I do that all. I really pay a lot of attention to the tops and ends of the songs and making sure that everything feels right, and I clean up tracks, and incessantly but never take away anything human and make sure they feel right. And it makes mixing a lot easier. You don't have those weird surprises later, like, the song gets mastered and now you hear the vocal plosive or a really sharp S or a click or something on an acoustic guitar track that's not meant to be there. So it can be a little time consuming sometimes, but those times where we go through and we manually just adjust things that bother us, it's funny how with all the tools and I feel like compression is the first tool that gets us to start doing that. This idea that we can find something in one setting will just make it perfect through the song, and when really all we needed to do was just go in and find that one and just bring it down. That's absolutely the point of how I use it. And I really, when I'm trying to teach people about recording, I'm like, this, there's a bit of set and forget with mixing a song, but there's a lot of stuff where you should be chopping the vocal track up into 3 or 4 different paths that have different things happen at different times and are compressed differently and affected differently and EQ'd differently for different parts of a song. And if you do it and you have a system and you do it quick, it doesn't take much time. And it works so much better than assuming that you're going to fight the mix into submission somehow. With one. I get so mad when I look online and I see people go like, what's the best setting for this compressor plug-in or something? You're like, that is the dumbest question I've ever heard. Like, these people aren't listening at all. And so many of the ways that things are being talked about, with amateur mixing is like getting this, the perfect thing. This will make everything so much easier. And it's not true. It's the true thing is like setting up really, really good arrangements with all your chopped up tracks that just fire at the right time, do the right thing, and sound balanced and amazing when they do it because you set that up in a temporal setup.
So if you receive a vocal and it's from the lead vocals from the beginning to end of the song, would it be common for you to take that and immediately separate the verses onto their own track and the chorus is on its own track possibly?
If I hear a reason to, and it depends on the density of the song at the different parts of the song. You can sometimes just see by the amount of tracks, look at all the ones that come in on the chorus. Okay, that's going to need help, and I might just do that, cut it before I even listen to a rough mix,
because it's easier than trying to program on all these complex changes from one moment to another.
Automation is like a leftover from the god-awful console automation, if you remember what that was like.
Yeah.
Never fun, never fast, always time-consuming, always hours of rewriting little nitpick spots of fader automation. It was a horrible way to work. Now there's like this internal version in Pro Tools. I barely have a single instance of automation on an in-the-box mix or a console mix that's coming out of Pro Tools. Barely ever. Like chop the tracks up, send them down different channels, do different things, get the work done before then. If you started a mix with automation, you know what happened. You're a professional. You know what happens. It goes down the shitter immediately.
Yeah. It's always that conundrum of like, when should I start doing the automation? Save it till the very last second.
It's like, just don't, basically. I mean, I really just don't do it. I have so few, during the pandemic, I've mixed like hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of songs, and I can't think of more than like 3 or 4 times I've used automation,
That's cool. So it's more like thinking about the musical parts, and there's a balance that's right for each moment of section of the song.
I mean, down to individual moments even, or just like, if something's wrong, if one word's always popping out in a song, just cut that track and put it on its own track for that word, if you have to, or clip gain it, or just pull it out and EQ it and do something different for that split second. Yeah. You can send me a 15-track song to mix and I'll end up with 40 tracks, And it's like,
oh, that's interesting.
And it's not like, oh, God forbid 40 tracks. It's like, no, now it's even easier because they all just doing their own thing at their own times. And then the mix is moving along and getting done.
Yeah. So now behind you is the Neve console. Mm-hmm. And would you be breaking those tracks out onto the Neve console? And then it's like, if that one line is too loud or quiet, you've just got a fader and you just bring it up a little bit.
Yeah. Sometimes I'm mixing that way. Sometimes I'm mixing in the box, for like like a lot of the internet, remote mixing things, I just can't commit to the console because I can't mix like one song a day for $250, Totally, so I have to have a different rate structure and stuff for that. So, but yeah, if I'm on the console, it might be a lead vocal track, on the console, a channel on the console that's going through like a Moog EQ and a retro 176. That's very typical for me. And then, there might be like 3 different Pro Tools tracks feeding that channel. So like they come in and do their different, so they're getting outboard compression, but they're hitting it harder. So it sounds, to me, sometimes sounds great. Like the chorus might be pushing into that 176 and the verse relaxes and it has different levels based on the input. It's kind of backwards mixing as how people used to do it. Because you would compress something and then turn the fader up and down in the old
right,
school
exactly,
world.
Yeah. And I guess at different times, different things are the right choice.
Yeah,
you gotta try them, and good thing you can use your ears to judge whether or not it's working.
I have 2 ears; they work.
Talk to us about your mix bus a little bit. I know, not that you're getting fancy with it, but what about just levels? And apologies if we've already covered this, but when I find myself mixing and I'm doing the thing in the box where it's like, I've got it, maybe going through some stereo bus compressor, maybe there's a tape emulation, and then maybe it's hitting a limiter to bring it up for that sort of fake mastered level. Yeah. But then sometimes it's like, well, what's the right level and what's loud enough and too loud and all that. And it feels like a chasing my tail thing.
For the final output of the mix, like in the box?
Yeah. Like you want to take it to the car and have it feel like, that's in the ballpark kind of thing.
I don't ever get into like nearly as loud as mastered, but I do in the box and sometimes so in the box, I almost always just do the dangerous Baxendale EQ, which I also have a hardware version here. But in the box, I'll put that on the left-right bus, and I'll do the precision limiter that's in the UAD platform, which is funny because every once in a while there's other engineers and they just go, oh, yeah, that thing, that's amazing. They know. It's not based on any real hardware. It's just a very clean, solid limiter. And I have special settings for both of those, and I almost always just slap those on at the very end of my mixing process. I'll make sure, what I will do, I thought when you first talked about buses, one thing I do is I have buses set up for the general kind of instruments I seem to be working with, bass, drums, guitar, vocals. So I have like 6 buses that I might send everything to one way or the other, like an et cetera bus if needed. Strings, whatever the dominant extra things are on a song.
Is there a Larry bus?
No, there's a short bus for Larry. But I'll put those to their buses and I'll assign them right away at the top of the session as I'm mixing. And I do this on the console as well. I use the 4-channel stereo bus to do that, and then some of the stuff will just be on the 1-2 bus, or the left-right bus. But I will assign to these buses in the box, and the great thing about that is you can just go mute all the drums, or just mute the vocals, and I also will group all the buses and then bring them down if I'm losing my headroom on the left-right output. I'll just pull them all down, and so it's keeping me in a good spot. I don't really do much processing on those buses. I'm not one of those people that does that. I do my processing before it gets to those buses.
Have you found the routing folder tracks to be useful for those buses, or do you still keep it on kind of old school, just aux buses?
I don't know how to do that folder thing still. Someone showed me and I was like, oh, didn't know about it.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
I know that feeling.
It makes a lot of sense. Someone explained it to me and I totally get it.
I bet by the time this comes out, you'll be like, oh shit, I'm using folders all the time.
I like to keep everything visible because to me, it's my sheet music. And I'm looking at it and I'm going, what's happening when? I do a thing which when I interviewed Brad Wood or hung out with him last time, I guess, it turned out he does the exact same thing where it's like you start the mix, just go explode your waveform zoom in, so all the way up, and then go and clean up all the tracks to where there's no audio, and it also show you where there's like background hiss and things on the track. So I'll start cleaning up tracks, I'll start cleaning up where they're not firing, and then when I zoom it back down, I see where audio clips come in and out of the song. So that's my sheet music. It tells me to be aware of like that really quiet tambourine on the third verse or something, because there's a clip there. So it's keeping me on track. I mean, the worst thing that happens a lot is you lose track. You lose track of the tracks. You lose sight of what's happening when, and you send a mix off and they're like, well, there's that other part on that third verse,
Right. You forgot to include
so
muted.
If you have these things there as reminders, these clips and stuff that you're looking at, then that is a good thing to keep you on track, So I do that. I do that thing. It turned out Brad did the same thing. And sometimes it doesn't really matter if it's been a really cleaned up track. It's digital silence, but it gives you a nice focus to look at what's going on. And the zooming way up, like we're zooming the waveforms way up, is so important to see where there actually are like hidden bumps and noises and things at the beginnings and ends of songs and all that.
Yeah, those mouth sounds.
Yeah, all that shit. Yeah.
Or when you're singing and somebody turns, hey man, here comes the third verse.
Yeah. There's not, every once in a while, there's still people like, I cleaned it up really good. And then there's someone going, yeah, that's great. Off mic at the end of something, really, walking out the door, there's always something.
Yeah. Yeah.
I
know, like you finish the take and then immediately somebody starts explaining how that take was no good. And you're like, oh,
yeah.
Come on, guys.
Yeah. That sucked.
Be frozen like a statue.
I know. It drives me crazy. I will when I'm tracking sessions, I will make the band give me like, just cymbal crash, like kick and cymbal, a couple of variations of that can fly in to cover up people talking at the end of songs.
Keep the endings of bad takes for that.
Yeah. Oh yeah, totally. But on the console, I'll do buses as well, and I'll actually record the buses on the first pass or in multiple passes. So that gives me somewhere to assign to make stems. So if I'm doing an analog mix out of digital and back into digital, I'll just start creating stems on the first mix pass, and that's a great way to have just a backup, just break it down, do your first pass on a typical rock song, drums, bass, main rhythm guitars and a vocal track with all effects and all vocals, and then print the next mix, take the vocal one out of the mix, out of the left, right, and then run another one down, get an instrumental pass of the whole song and a drive lead vocal with all the other stuff muted, and then just go from there and break it down to, then you can mute the drums and everything and assign other things to those buses, record, lead guitars and keyboards and backing vocals. And so just to come up with I can get it down to like 3 or 4 passes of the whole song and get all the stems I need, because if you're doing stem by stem by stem, you could be there all day.
Do you feel like the time you've spent watching YouTube videos, trying out mix tricks, and tweaking version after version of your mixes has not gotten you anywhere? Have you been looking for a simple or straightforward step-by-step process for creating a pro mix that won't take years to learn? What if you could learn that process from a Grammy-winning mix engineer who understood all your mixing struggles and could coach you through them? If you struggle with any of these questions, then the Ultimate Mixing Masterclass is for you. Now you can discover a proven step-by-step mix system from Grammy-winning mixer Craig Alvin for consistently creating a pro-quality mix from your home studio that will sound amazing everywhere. Here's a quote from one of the students. "Absolutely the most informative and helpful block of information mentoring on the mix process I've ever been a part of. This was like sitting behind a mix engineer for years, watching and picking up tips along the way, condensed into a 6 to 7 hour session." Look, when you're ready to take your mixes to Grammy-winning quality, then go to ultimatemixingmasterclass.com and go check out Craig's ultimate snare mixing trick now for free. Is the final stem the subliminal messaging stem of Larry, where you're just like, "This mix was done by Larry Kay.
Yeah.
Enjoy this mix. This mix was done by
It's like it's an NFT actually, yeah.
There you go. Oh man, I'm so glad you brought that up, but we're out of time.
Yeah.
Fascinating, dude. So then, well, as far as stems go, do you find that you're delivering stems to everybody that's getting a mix these days, or is that still just labels?
I don't give anyone stems.
Okay. All right.
I mean, I will, an attended analog mix session, I'll probably give them the stems and folders, but I'm pretty paranoid that people are going to try to remix the stems and do some really horrible things to the work. And so I've really advised, I'm like, I'll recombine those for a nominal fee if you need to. I don't want to send something to mastering that it wasn't really my work,
Right. Totally.
It's terrifying.
Totally. Right.
People have tried.
So it's more like a backup as part of your own internal process.
The stems, in the box mix, I don't print stems. I print an instrumental mix. I print a vocal mix, and then that's just in Pro Tools. But in the console mix, I'll print the stems just if we need to recombine stems in order to make it
a lot easier to do than resetting up the whole console mix and trying to recall.
I won't even let people make me do that. I mean, I'm just like, you're not going to put me through that. I've had 25 years of that. Don't, let me print the stems, give me some time. It's about budgeting your time and your communication and being clear with the clients and all these things. Just saying, this is how we're going to work. And if you don't like that, then, we're going to talk,
So we gotta wrap up here, but what are you excited about next, man? What is the future of mixing and recording hold for you? What's the next frontier?
I've been doing a lot of virtual recording workshops so I used to do these workshops here at the studio. We get like 10 people and they'd come for a weekend and we would listen to their mixes and then we listen to their raw tracks and we'd talk about tracking and mixing and arranging and every single thing like we've talked about today. So I've been doing, since I can't really get 10 people jammed in a control room right now with masks off, I've been doing remote ones like on Zoom, and they're really pretty cool. They're just geared towards the person that wants to talk to me. They send me whatever they really want me to deal with. It could be just all their final mixes for an album. It could be like one song and one batch of raw multi-track. It could be a Pro Tools session, a Logic session, and so I go through the stuff and talk about, it's always the same stuff. I swear to God, it's always phase relationships. It's always too many things cluttering the same frequencies. It's always, just several kinds of bad practices, like mixes are too loud, mixes are too quiet, and just perspective and balance, I mean, but it's fun to do. It's fun. I feel like I always do the same thing, but it always has to be the knowledge has to be applied in a different way, like, and
I just think it's fun. It's just fun interacting with people and doing stuff.
Yeah.
That's my favorite part of it.
I love doing these. I've been doing like a couple a week. So it's a good, honestly, it's, to be really blunt, it's a good, good supplemental income, for me. Yeah. And, I probably put in more time than I should listening to the tracks and getting ready and doing all this stuff. But I really enjoy it. And I always get a little nervous, just like you do before you start a tracking session or something, get a little nervous in your stomach. And then as soon as we get on Zoom, we start talking. It's like, there's so many things to talk about. Like, well, what are you monitoring through? Where are you recording at? What's this? What's the intent of this? There's so many questions to ask. And it's always pretty pleasurable, honestly. It's really fun.
Yeah. I've done a fair amount of mix coaching that way on Zoom, Skype stuff too.
Yeah.
And it's really fun to interact with people. And I'm always the one who's like making us go over time.
Mm-hmm.
I'm the one who's like, it's like, well, let's keep talking about it, but let's talk about this.
Yeah. I mean, I spend probably more time on the front end, like listening to the tracks and making notes and then the thing that's been good, I tried doing like just written mix reviews, like really kind of short and cheaper. And someone would send a track and I think I was saying 25 a track, and it just really didn't work out. I was spending a lot of time writing, and I'm already spending a lot of time writing in my life with the magazine. So it was kind of like, oh, this was a bad idea, And if people want, this is obviously, it costs more to do a virtual workshop, but it's expanded, and we get to talk face to face and really figure out what the problems are, go back and forth. And I'll even, have the session up here behind me, like where we're sitting right now. And I'll turn around, I'll play it in Pro Tools and go, oh yeah, you're right. That thing. Okay. So I can listen to stuff and solo things and talk about it. And I have my notes I've made beforehand. So I really like doing those. I think my family, my great-grandfather was an educator, a teacher who went to Berkeley in the Bay Area. And there's a lot of educational folks in my family that have taught and done stuff. And I think it just comes in my nature to be, my dad was always really patient. My mom was patient in teaching me how to do things. When I was young, my mom did art. My dad rebuilt houses and all kinds of stuff. And so, I learned a lot, and I've always been good at explaining things to people, I feel like. And
well, you're, as far as we're all concerned, you're a global treasure for those of us making records. And we're glad you're here.
Oh, gosh.
And glad you continue to do all this.
Oh, thank you, sir.
How would the rock stars come find you if they wanted to do one of these?
The workshops and stuff?
Yeah, workshop.
Everything, if you go to Larry-Crane, LARRY-CRANE.com, it's really easy, or jackpotrecording.com and vomitlaunch.com. These are all the websites I host. But yeah, go to Larry-Crane.com, and I've got links and stuff on there. My email is just Larry@TapeOp, TAPEOP.com. Anyone's free to email me at any time. It's been the same email for 20 plus years. And I will answer everything that I can.
That's awesome, dude.
Always.
Well, so let me hit you with our closing question, which you've done before,
okay.
But
I forgot what it was.
Try to remember. Yeah, well, this one's easy. Maybe not really. We're going to take the Wayback Studio machine, and you get to go back in time, and you find Larry at some other point. I don't know how far you want to go back. Your choice this time. But you come back and say, I've come back to give you this one bit of advice. Here's the single most important thing you need to know to be a rock star of the recording studio yourself. What advice, when do you want to go find yourself, and what advice do you want to give yourself?
I want to go to 1982 and say, it's okay to take piano lessons.
Nice. I love it,
Yeah,
dude.
I took some and I didn't like it and I dropped out. And man, I wish of all the instruments, I wish I just had a better grounding in music theory and chord structure. And everything I've learned has been hard bought.
Maybe I just need to bring on a music theory workshop, virtual workshop guy, and we'll all start showing up at workshops with all of us who have that same, bit of advice.
I think that would be the key to a lot of it. And it's become a key to more on how I understand stuff, of just how things really fit together, and learning to listen deeper and deeper for all those sort of things too, when you're working, mixing and stuff.
I always enjoyed whatever little bit of, music theory that I got, but then they'd get to they'd be like, and here are all the modes, Dorian, and they'd be like, and here are all the sharps and flats, and then I was just like, I
think
couldn't keep it up.
The important thing to understand from that is, God, who was the interview I just saw? It's amazing. Sting, totally self-taught. Technically, he's he knows where all the notes are. He can read sheet music and play, but I think the thing that he's pointed out in this interview I was watching was how does it feel? Mixolydian, all these different scales or format, whatever they call them, modes. They make you. I just listened to a song today. It goes minor to major, to the chorus or something, and I'm like, yeah, that's an old school trick. Someone just probably said I should write something that does that, and those make you feel a certain way. So I think learning music structure and all that stuff is fantastic. I'm not one of those people that says you got to do it all on your own, learn on your own. But I think you've also got to learn just how it feels to you, and then just take that, and that's how you learn to create, to write a song, or to be able to do things to the next level. It's just that feels like something, and it feels like a time, a place, a story, and then you write to that or build to that. I think that's the important thing.
Was that one of the Rick Beato interviews or whatever? Yeah. He's doing some really great interviews. I was listening to his interview with Pat Metheny.
Oh, I bet that's good.
Recently. That was a lot of fun too.
Yeah. Rick seems to really, he gets a little excited sometimes, but he seems to really get, the same thing. He's an accomplished musician, so he's asking these questions, kind of like we do at TapeOp. We're asking people, our peers and stuff, how do you do this? What's this like? So the questions are smart, and it's really fun. It's fun to watch Rick. Yeah. It's fun to interview people. I'll tell you that.
It is fun, man. Thank you again for joining us, dude. Great to see you. Rockstars, thanks for listening. And Larry, I look forward to seeing you in person, hopefully sooner rather than later.
I know. I miss Nashville.
We'll see you at NAMM or something.
Oh, yeah.
All right, dude.
Bye.
Thanks for joining us today.
Thank you.
Cheers. Thanks so much for listening to Recording Studio Rockstars. If you enjoyed the show and want to help make it better, then please share this episode with your friends on social media and leave a rating and review on iTunes to help the podcast reach more rock stars like yourself. You can click directly over to iTunes or go to rsrockstars.com/review for an easy explanation. And remember to hit the subscribe button to keep up with weekly episodes. And if you're ready to make your best record ever now, then head over to Recording Studio Rockstars Academy, where you can start with my free course at mixmasterbundle.com. And if you want more free content from Recording Studio Rockstars, all you have to do is go to rsrockstars.com/email. Again, that's rsrockstars.com/email to enter your name and email, and I'll keep you in the loop with articles, videos, podcast updates, and even free gear giveaways for your studio. Just look for the link in the show notes below. Thanks so much for listening, and thanks for being a rock star. I'm Lid Shaw, and this is Recording Studio Rockstars. Now, go make great music. Recording Studio Rockstars would like to give a big thank you to our awesome sponsors who help make this episode possible. OWC, Spectra 1964, JZ Microphones, Atom Audio, Solid State Logic, and iZotope. Remember to use these coupon codes for special discounts. At iZotope.com/rockstars, use the coupon code ROCK10 for 10% off any plugin purchase, or start your extended 30-day free trial subscription subscription for access to many plugins. At jzmic.com, use the code ROCKSTAR for 40% off the V47, V67, and V12 microphones. That's what you're hearing my voice on right now. At recordingstudiorockstars.com/academy, use the coupon ROCKSTAR for 10% off any course for a limited time. If you enjoyed Recording Studio Rockstars, then please check out our sponsors using the link in our show notes because it's a great way to help support this show. These are all things I highly recommend for your studio, and they're going to help you make your best record ever. I would also like to thank our fantastic team here at Recording Studio Rockstars, Vlad Weselchenko, Braden Stremming, and John Richardson for additional podcast and video production. Thanks so much for listening, Rockstars, and we'll see you in the next episode. Cheers.